Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Recently, new information has come out in the Delphi murder case. This animation that I have on the screen I've had for probably a year now. That shows the positioning and timing of the information that was in the probable cause document. That information is exactly the same as what was presented at trial, but just more dialed in and specific, and with other information that augment the timeline. And now we have new information from Brad Weber, who was an individual who owns a van, an Econo van, I guess is what it was. I don't remember the specific brand, but really doesn't matter. It was the only van that was driving on the private drive. I think it's 625, right below the Monon High Bridge on the southeast side of the bridge. And his van was driving to his mother's house, Kay Weber. This is Brad Weber driving to the house, and it turns out that Richard Allen mentioned, or as his buddies call him, Ricky, Rick. All these mega fans out there that think Richard Allen's one of the greatest human beings on the planet Earth. He's just being railroaded by a bunch of Keystone cops who needed to pin it on somebody, so they chose not to pin it on Ron Logan, the suspect that everybody thought it was, who passed away, who would have been very simple to pin the murder on, but they chose to pick some other lackey named Richard Allen. The truth is Richard Allen's appearance in this case, when his name was finally revealed and figured out, he answered every single question law enforcement had. He answered, who was the individual parked at the abandoned CPS building between the hours of noon and 5 o'clock? That was Richard Allen. He answered the question about who was Bridge Guy. He is that person as well. He absolutely 100% is Bridge Guy. And he answered, who is the person who left the bullet at the crime scene? Well, that's Richard Allen. His 6-hour P226 ejected the bullet that was found at the crime scene, and the Bridge Guy, again, is Richard Allen. Now, let me show you why Richard Allen is the Bridge Guy. We'll start with that, and then we'll go through the new information with Brad Weber's information that just came out. All right, so here we go. Let's see, 12:43. There were 4 girls. I just have 3 balls here because 3 of them were the witnesses. One of them was a younger girl, and there's 3 girls there, 4 actually, and they're walking this direction, but they're right here at 12:43. Now, if you remember, Richard Allen said that in October of 2022, I think on the October 13th interview, he said that he got to the trails at noon and left at 1:30 after telling Dan Doolin back in, I think it was on February 18th, 2017, he said he got there, at first he said 1 and he left at 3, then he went, well, no, it was actually 1:30 and he left at 3:30. Because at the time, Richard Allen was responding to the Indiana State Police putting out a picture of himself into the newspaper on the 15th. It said, hey, we want to talk to this person. So then on the 16th, Richard Allen called the tip line, or at least maybe showed up at the police station and said, hey, yeah, I was there from 1:30 to 3:30 on that day, and I saw some girls, and I went to the bridge. And so a tip was generated, and Dan Doolin was sent out and visited him on the 18th. So Richard Allen was doing exactly what they wanted. They wanted to talk to the person in the image and see what they saw out there that day. So Richard Allen called. He met up with Dan Doolin on the 18th. He said that he parked at the old Farm Bureau building, but that doesn't exist in this area. It's downtown, and through various other interviews Richard Allen did, he absolutely was referring to the abandoned CPS building because he described it right in that area right there, and that's the only building there. It's the only old building. So he parked there. He went to the Freedom Bridge, he said, and then after passing the Freedom Bridge, as he was getting onto the Monon High Trail, he passed 3 girls. And then he went to the Monenhai Bridge to look at some fish. Now, and that's what he said in the 2022 interviews. In his original interviews, he told Dan Doolin that he went to the bridge and he was walking down the trails and he was looking at his stock ticker. You know, just trying to be casual, talking about stock tickers. But unfortunately, and fortunately, so fortunately, Dan Doolin got the MEI number off of Richard Allen's phone. And then, unfortunately for Richard Allen, after law enforcement did a search, his phone was never in the area. So obviously, when he went to the bridge that day, he left his phone at home. That's something a lot of innocent people do when they're about to commit a crime, is they leave their phone at home, right? Right, that's what I thought. Anyways, so Richard Allen's phone was either turned off or he left it at home. And he went to the Monenhai Bridge Trail and he parked his car at the abandoned CPS building. Right? And now let's work from there. So now it turns out at trial and also in the probable cause document, there's 3 girls right here, 4 girls. I just have 3 balls, so I keep saying 3. But there's 4 girls there, and they're at the bridge at 12:43. But imagine they must have got there around 12:20-ish, right? So they walk all the way down this trail. They didn't see Richard Allen. They didn't see a guy that looked like Bridge Guy. They walked all the way down here, and they got to the bridge at 12:43 and were taking pictures. And this is apparently the time where Libby called, and about 10 minutes after this, Libby called, I think it was Bree maybe, and they said that they'd left 10 minutes before the bridge area. So they walked this direction, and they were hanging out, and they go to the bench over here, and they get there at 1:26. So here they are at this bench at 1:26. They still haven't seen Richard Allen or a Bridge Guy, anybody that looked like that at all. So they've cleared the area, proving that Richard Allen's story that he told in 2022 was absolutely false, and his phone wasn't even there. And they're at the bench. 1 minute after they take that photograph, these 3 girls took a photo at the bench that proves that time. 1 minute after that, a vehicle matching the description of Richard Allen's 2016 black Ford Focus drives by the Hoosier Harvest Store, which is this building right here, and it's picked up on camera. And then Richard Allen says he parks at the abandoned CPS building. Doesn't say those words, but that's the building he parked at. Then he got out of the vehicle at, within a minute or so, whatever, gets out and likely passed the 3 girls at about 1:35. And he admits to seeing them, and all 3 of them saw him. All right, so we know that right now this blue dot is Richard Allen. There is no doubt that that is Richard Allen right there. Those 3 girls said that the person they saw is the same person in Libby's video. Okay, the person they saw is the same person they saw in Libby's video, even though their original descriptions were a little different from each other, and height and so forth. People just don't remember. Now, the reason law enforcement wants to put in Richard Allen's photographs from back in 2017 that were on his phone is because he looks vastly different. He was stocky, he looked younger and better. Everything was different for him back then. So after Richard Allen passes the girls, he sees them, and they see him, and they said the person they saw, they described them a little differently, but when they were showed the photograph, each one of them said, yeah, that's the guy I saw. Then Richard Allen continues down the trail. It takes 11 minutes to walk there briskly. Let's just say even 10 minutes. He did it quicker. And he walks down the trail, and he says he went right to the Monenhai Bridge. And look above here, you see the girls, they're heading out, and there goes Betsy Blair going underneath the old State Road 25 bridge, and at that moment, she looks up and sees those 4 girls. Then she continues around and makes her way and passes the Hoosier Harvest Store at 1:46, likely gets out of her car here at 1:47. Now, interestingly, these 4 girls right here, they proved that one of the girls' comments was in error. She said, yeah, I left it around 12:15. But she's one of those 4 girls. The photograph of the bench at 126 and Betsy Blair looking up and seeing them proves that she just has her recollection is off. So then here comes Betsy Blair around, passes the Hoosier Hardware Store, 146, and then parks here and gets out of her car about 147. Now, it's amazing because right after that, 2 minutes later, Kelsey drops off Abby and Libby just as Betsy Blair is heading down the trail. They get out and Kelsey continues on. So Abby and Libby get out right there, and Betsy Blair is heading towards the bridge. Abby and Libby are walking slower. They're just taking pictures and walking whimsically, having fun. Betsy Blair's there to exercise. So she walks, and she turns around at the barricade. Now, interestingly, at trial, she said she was 50 feet away and saw the individual on the first platform. The first platform is 50 feet away from the start of the bridge. And that made me think, well, the barricade I know is much further back. So I measured it, and it's 111 feet. So when she turned around the barricade, she was actually 111 feet away from Richard Allen as he stood on platform 1. So her remembering of specifics and everything like that is absolutely called into question. I mean, that's 37 yards away. It's much different than 50 feet. And so Betsy Blair gets there, turns around, and then halfway back passes Abby and Libby. And then Abby and Libby are therefore going to see Richard Allen next, because that's who this person is right here. There is no out for him. Let me show you this part right here. So when Richard Allen gets to the bridge, Betsy Blair's showing up. She gets out. Richard Allen would have had no time to have sprinted back this way to get past Betsy Blair so she wouldn't see him. He would have got here at 145, and she got out of her car at 147. He'd have to run like Carl Lewis to get past, but she saw him, and he didn't do that. So she walks down to the bridge, and there he is, standing on platform 1, exactly where he told police he was standing in his interview on October 26, 2022. He was standing on platform 1, and that's where Betsy Blair always saw him. And Betsy Blair said that the person that she saw, even though she had a wild description and so forth, looked like the person in Libby's video. Okay, so she was 111 feet away, and she didn't get a good look, but her memory filled things in, and that is very, very common. So then Betsy Blair heads this way, and then Abby and Libby pass, and this person right here is Richard Allen. There is no out. That's why when you see it in an animated form, you know it, and it is the truth. Abby and Libby then have to pass Richard Allen, but he never said he saw them. Okay, and that means he's lying again, because he knows that would be damaging. And I think Richard Allen then went back a little bit. He watched them pass, and then he followed them, just like he said in his confession. He followed them across, just like this. Betsy Blair is right here. She's about to get to her car and take off. And at that moment, in this park, there's only Richard Allen, Abby, and Libby. So here comes Richard Allen, down in the bottom here. He's catching up to the girls, just like he said. And then he racks his gun, just like he said in his confession. He did something to his gun. And then the girls go down the hill. He forces them down the hill. Now, I think he takes them back to this corner here. That's the place that, even at the very beginning of this case, I thought that that area right there is where he attempted to assault them, and then the girls tried to escape across the shallow area that's in the creek. All right? The shallow area is right there, but it's also this very secluded area down there, and you can't see him from the bridge, etc. It just so happened, though, that Brad Weber, who got off work at 2:02, and it takes 20 to 25 minutes to drive, let's give a minute, 2 minutes to get to the car, 2:04, add 20 minutes, 2:25, 25 minutes, 2:29, and then Brad Weber would be driving right here on this white private drive right in that corner. And then at that point, he got scared and he moved the girls across the creek, and then at some point he must have racked another bullet there, or the original time he racked a bullet on the bridge, he was just putting one in the chamber. He says he always has one in the chamber. He may have ejected one there, and if I was law enforcement, I would take a metal detector down below that bridge and see if they could find a .40 caliber bullet sitting down there that is, 7.5 years old. This is the location where the bodies were found on the following day. And then Richard Allen apparently goes up through the cemetery here, takes a left, and then Sarah Carbaugh sees him right in this area. All right, so let's pick up here with Google Earth. This is the area right here. So check it out. The girls in this area are taken down the hill at like 2:14 and 34 seconds. The video started at 2:13 and 51 seconds and was 43 seconds long when it was turned off, just as they were starting to go down the hill. So let's just say they get down here by let's say the private drive by like 2:16 here. Then down below 2:17, and then it takes 3 or 4 minutes maybe to get the girls at gunpoint to walk over here, and he gets into this corner by 2:21, 2:22, something like that. They get into this corner here, and he was going to assault them in this corner. And then, while he's there, Brad Weber drives by at like 2:28. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, the timing here. He drives by, and these girls are down there. They probably saw the white van, and so did Richard Allen. So after the car drove by, probably drove over here and parked, he was like, holy shit. And then he makes the girls go across the creek over here, and then he continued to do whatever he was doing. But here's the thing, everybody. Richard Allen is the only living person on the planet that knew that Brad Weber was driving his car on that private drive at that time, other than Brad Weber himself. Okay, the cell phone stopped moving at 2:32 and 39 seconds of Libby, right? It stopped at that time, and it makes perfect sense. That's exactly about the time from, 3.5 minutes to get across the creek, kind of wading across. Then her phone quit moving, and then I think he had him undress there. He did whatever he was doing. He didn't actually touch them, it sounds like, but he had them undress, and then there was clothing in the water. Abby redressed herself in mostly Libby's clothing. She did have her pink shirt on underneath. She had Libby's sweatshirt on, and she had Libby's pants on. She seemed to have her own pair of Chuck Taylors on, and then she also had a couple bras on underneath that. I think she was allowed to dress. He may have had second thoughts on her, but then he ends up killing her after she was dressed. And I think that at that point, Richard Allen started to cover the girls with sticks. I mean, we don't know all the things he was thinking and doing. We do know that a pair of underwear and a sock are missing. And so he, who knows what he was doing, you guys? Use your imagination. And then he's at the crime scene, and now we know that Cheyenne, she was likely over in this area at like 3:30 to 3:45. She took a picture on platform 5 right there. As a matter of fact, I have that. Let's show that picture. It's right here. That's from platform 5. That's an image that Cheyenne took down the bridge. This is the forked tree that's behind the suspect in the image that's released. And then she also took this picture. I think she took this one on the way in. She walked in. That's the barricade. That's the first platform that Richard Allen was standing on. And she walked this direction, got on the platform, and took a photograph that way, and then continued across the bridge. All right? So Cheyenne was there. And I think it's very possible that at some point, because her friend was with her, they were talking. Now, the wind that day was blowing across like this to the crime scene in that direction. So Richard Allen could likely hear them. And I think after he started to put the branches on the girls, he heard their voices on the bridge. He got nervous, and that's when he just took off without completing covering the girls. He took off. He makes his way up here, pretty treacherous, steep walk up this hill, through the cemetery. Then he's walking down the road here. That's when Sarah Carbaugh sees him. However, just before Sarah Carbaugh saw him, she drove by the parking area across from the Mears property, and there were multiple people there because they were showing up, amazingly, to find Abby and Libby. So she drove by and saw them. Then she sees the muddy and bloody guy. Now, he may have been further down. Like we could put him maybe here, something like that, right? So she drives by and sees him. Now, when the muddy and bloody guy, Richard Allen, would be walking this way, he would also see that there were people there, and there's no way in hell he's going to walk by them and then go by the Hoosier Harvest store over here. So he likely cut across at some point and went back behind the Hoosier Harvest store and the Mears property and made his way back over to his vehicle, and he left. Now, I don't think he left this way, it doesn't appear, but he could have gone all kinds of different ways. Like if he went this direction, I think there's other routes that you can take to go to various, back roads back there, but it could be that he just went downtown like this and then made his way past the Marathon gas station and then to his house over here. All right? So, there you have it, everybody. I'm putting it all together for you in a real simple way to look at. Richard Allen is locked in as bridge guy. Now, you might not think he is the killer, but he's still going to be responsible for kidnapping the girls, taking them down the hill. He'll just need to provide a name of the other people that were there to cut a deal of some sort, okay? Because he is the bridge guy. There is no out, all right? I'll just play it like this. Watch this. Those are the girls. 126. There's Richard Allen. They see him. He walks this way. Betsy Blair shows up, walks this way, and then Betsy Blair clears the area, but never sees him again. And the reason she never sees him again is because Richard Allen is at the crime scene and he's killed the girls. All right, everybody. I hope that helps you understand some of the information that they have in the case. And don't forget, everybody, at the crime scene, there was a bullet ejected from the gun, and that matched Richard Allen's ejection marks from his P226 Sig Sauer, as I mentioned. So it's unfortunate for all the people out there that are just so hell-bent doing mental gymnastics, trying to find a way to make Richard Allen not guilty in some way. It's almost like you want a person who killed children to get off. I mean, you're almost going out of your way. You're not using logic and reason. You're using fanciful thoughts and information that absolutely doesn't make any sense. Okay? So thank you all very much for watching. Try to be better, everybody out there. That would be great. I appreciate you watching. Hit that like button out there. I'm sure all the Richard Allen fan clubs will not hit that like button. But if you're in that fan club, I'm sure you will not hit it. But if you're not in it, feel free to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.